I realized something about myself when I was doing this project. The first real day that I worked on this fence, I spent probably 12 and a half hours working on it. That's 12 and a half hours. Now, obviously, I took some breaks. I stopped to eat. I stopped for 10 minutes here and there because it was hot as hell outside. And I had to just catch my breath. But for the most part, I spent 12 and a half hours doing physical labor. You know, digging, cutting wood, drilling, measuring, moving stuff around. And I enjoyed it. And I remember texting my cousin and basically saying, how the hell can I spend 12 and a half hours outside doing manual labor at my house and enjoy myself? But sometimes when I'm at work for 10 hours, my actual job, I'm just dreading. I'm like, God, I can't wait to get the hell out of here. And I think I figured out why. I think I really like building stuff. I mean, I am a fan of Lego, but that's a little bit different. And I think I may have accidentally found myself another hobby. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Sigma Duocast. This is going to be a little bit different of an episode. We're not talking about movies or video games or theme parks. That's coming soon. We're going to be talking about a fence because I recently built my first fence. Now, it's not a full fence, side fence with a gate. And like I said, when I say I built it, I mean I built this entire freaking thing. I demolished the old fence, dug up holes, I set posts, I mixed and poured concrete, I framed it, I cut the wood, I put up pickets, I built the gate, the whole shebang, you name it. And I wanted to talk about the experience because this is probably my first real substantial home improvement project. And I've always considered myself a pretty handy person, but I've done smaller things around the house. Those came to my house. You've seen some of the stuff I've done, but this was different. This was something where once I started tearing the old fence down, there was no going back. I had to figure it out. And now that it's finished, I learned a lot, not only about building a fence, but about myself and what I think I might become a new hobby for me. So let's talk about it. So why did I build a fence? Well, the reason I decided to do this, honestly, is not very exciting. The fence needed to be replaced. That's it. It was old. It was falling apart. It needed to be done. The gate wouldn't open. The posts were coming off. The original crafters did some interesting workarounds. And so my options were basically pay somebody to come and build it or figure out how to do it myself. And I started thinking, I'm a pretty handy person. I feel like I'm pretty smart. I've got common sense. Why can't I do this? And so now I'm not going to pretend that I had complete confidence. I was nervous and I never built a fence before. I've never set fence posts before. I've never really worked with concrete. I've never built a gate. There was a lot of things I was about to do for the first time. But part of me wanted to prove that I could do it. Obviously, saving money was part of it, but I also wanted the satisfaction of doing it myself. I wanted to learn. And I think even before starting, there was a part of me hoping maybe this becomes something. Maybe I really enjoy home improvement. Maybe I start doing bigger projects around the house. But before any of that could happen, I had to figure out how the hell to build a fence. So where did I turn to? Well, none other than YouTube University. I didn't just wake up one morning, grab a saw and start tearing stuff up. And I probably spent about a month preparing for this. And yes, YouTube was huge. I've watched a ton of different videos, different fence designs, different ways of setting posts, different ways of framing, different ways of building gates. And eventually I found one video in particular that really gave me the inspiration for what I wanted to build. And so the video that I watch was this. The video that I watched was I built the fence your neighbor wishes you built. I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to check it out, because I do want to give credit where credit's due to this individual, Mateo. He's phenomenal. He's got some great stuff. And after watching his video, that's where I was like, boom, got it. And so again, that was the fence where I looked at it and went, this is the one I want. I really like the shadow box style. I like the design. And more importantly, watching the process made me feel like I can do that. I didn't copy every single thing exactly. I've watched other videos. I picked up different techniques. I figured out what made sense for my house. And then I just started planning. I measured everything. I calculated how much lumber I needed, how many posts, how many pickets, concrete. I didn't want to buy too much material and waste money. Because again, part of me doing this is to save money. I'm doing the labor and I want to buy what I need. So I drew things out. I basically created my own little schematics. I have a little book over here and I got all these little designs and measurements and you name it. And the more I researched it, the more confident I became. Eventually, you're going to reach a point where you've watched enough videos, you've measured enough times, you've planned enough, and now you've actually got to freaking do this thing. So it all started with Demolition Day. And no, unfortunately, there was no Wesley Snipes or Sylvester Stallone. That would have been amazing. Even a Dennis Leary or, Sandra Bullock appearance would have been great, but it is what it is. I'm going to go watch that movie now. Anyways, so this is where YouTube doesn't fully prepare you. I knew digging up the holes for the post was going to suck. Like I already preemptively pumped myself like, damn, this is going to be the toughest part of the whole project is digging up these damn posts. Because for one, the dirt in my area, it's a little hard. So I had to, had my wife wet it the night before. And obviously I had to take the old stuff out and I didn't even think about the old concrete setting that was there. So I already expected all this. So taking down the old wood wasn't the problem. I took all that stuff down. I had my son, take out all the nails. He fully, demoed the rest. He helped me out tremendously. But it was when I got, so the wood usually, so just for proper, like, if you don't know, not, just to kind of give you an idea, you generally want to dig about 36 inches deep, right? To put your post in, which is about 2.5 feet or something like that. And you want to kind of fill that up with concrete. So you would essentially almost have 2 feet, if not more, of concrete around this post. So it protects it, holds it sturdy. It's going to survive forever. And when I dig these, the reason why my fence, the main post, busted is because I took the post out. They came out right out. But half of the, not half, but like a good chunk of the post was still underground. And the reason for that is because when I got to the bottom, I did eventually hit concrete, which for some reason, I didn't think about. I knew it, but I didn't, type of thing. But there was only less than a foot worth of concrete. So just take a moment and think about that. At least imagine 2 feet, 2.5 feet, right? And all that's supposed to be concrete. And when I dug this up, there was only about half a foot. This is why the wood rotted and died over time because of the ground being moist and all that. And it eventually broke. So found the problem as far as why that happened. But anyways, quick sidebar on that. Just wanted to share that. So digging these things up was probably the worst thing of the entire project. And of course, I decided to do this when it was hot outside. At one point, I started to feel nauseous. And I'm not going to diagnose myself. I'm not going to say that I had heat stroke or anything like that, which I feel like I think I did. But I definitely got to the point where my body was telling me, listen, dude, you need to stop. Go sit down, drink water, take breaks, catch breath, just relax. And I did. There was a moment where I felt like I wanted to vomit. And I'm assuming I was probably having I don't know if it was heat exhaustion maybe. But I had to go, I was constantly drinking water, but I laid down for 10, 15 minutes in my backyard in the shade and just let my body recuperate. So I learned that's something that I learned about myself and just the process. Again, you can plan the measurements, you can plan the materials, you can plan the design, but you can't necessarily plan how you're going to, freaking experience heat exhaustion, how that's going to be or anything like that. So once I got through all that, took the post out, got everything, I was like, okay, now we're actually building something. So, got my post in, got the holes, we're going. But this is where I made my first real mistake. So I set my first main post and I was setting my second main post and I had measured everything out. Like I want to get the two posts aligned because one's for the, they're like the gate ones, they're the mains. So I measured everything was right. I'm getting everything squared. I'm getting everything situated. Perfect. Everything's going great. I pour the concrete. Everything's good until I realize the post is slightly misaligned from the other post. And we're talking about a half an inch, which is kind of is a huge thing, but fortunately it wasn't catastrophic. The fence isn't ruined. But I noticed it. I saw it after everything was squared. And I'm like, oh my God, it's not aligned. And I measured beforehand. So I was so pissed, but hey, we're going to go with it. So the post lives there now. I'm not digging this freaking thing back out. So I had two options. I could either freak out because something isn't perfect, or I can figure out how to make it work. And that's what I did. I adjusted. I worked around it. And once everything was finished, you really can't tell, but I know. And I will always know where that half inch is. But again, there were a couple other cuts and stuff that were like that too. Cuts where I went, man, well, that wasn't exactly what I wanted, but hey, I figured it out. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons from this whole thing is things aren't always going to go exactly according to plan. You just have to understand enough what you're doing and how to adapt to it. So that's some of my big learning curves on that is some of the little mini things. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's there. So I got to the point where everything changed for me was when I finally got the post in and I started putting the framing up because now I could see it. Before that, it's holes, posts, piles of wood everywhere, dirt, and then the framing goes up and suddenly I'm looking at going, oh shoot, okay, this is actually going to work. And once I started putting the pickets on, that was probably one of the easiest and most satisfying parts. Every picket makes it look more and more like an actual fence. And suddenly all the preparation and the digging and the concrete and the measuring starts paying off. And I went with the shadow box pattern from the YouTube video. I went with the measurement because there's some shadow box that if you look at it from an angle, you can see. I still wanted to maintain privacy, but I also wanted to maintain that shadow box effect. So I got the measurement just right on the spacing, and it came out fantastic. And then there was the gate. Building that was another completely new thing for me. I did half flap joints with the 2x4s. So I could have easily bought like some framing kit or something on Amazon or Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, but I didn't want to do that. I took the inspiration of the gentleman on the video and I said, I like that. It looks clean. I'm using 2x4s. Excuse me. I'm just going to do these half flap joints. So that was something new for me. I really wanted to kind of push myself so I can learn now and use it in the future. So I had to use, I had to take the saw and adjust it. So I cut half of it, half of the 2x4. I had to do it like 8 times. Then I had to get a wood chisel and kind of chisel it out. And I'll tell you right now, the first time I did it, it was tough. I didn't know what I was doing. The end result wasn't the best that I wanted. I did have to do it again later down the road for another reason within the fence project. And it was better. So I learned from it. It was great. And even doing that, again, I could see myself getting better as I did. And my first cuts and the chisel work compared to later in the project, completely different, which is fantastic. So you're literally learning while you're building. It's such an amazing feeling. It's an amazing thing to experience. And then there's this stupid little thing that I'm really proud of. The gate latch. I drilled a hole, so I put my latch on, and I actually had to create a spacer, which this is where I future use the wood chisel cut into 2x4.5 and all that good jazz came into play because, again, the spacing was off from the 2 posts because it was a 1/2 inch off, so I had to get a 1/2 inch 2x4, blah, 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 put it on there. It was great, but I put the latch on, and then I wanted it to be, I saw, a lot of videos that I saw, and I said, you know what, because I had the latch like halfway in the middle of the gate. And I was like, I'm going to drill a hole through here so I can run the wire. So easy opening and closing on that. And it was functionally fantastic on the other side. It's just a small little detail, but it's my detail. I figured it out and I freaking love it. And what's funny is when my kids and my wife, they saw, they're like, oh, okay, look at you trying to be slick. And, at least that's what my wife is. She tried to like sarcastically hype me up, but also kind of, slap me, if that makes sense. If you're married, you know what I'm talking about. And my kids, they were like, oh, what the hell? Like, this is crazy. This is cool. And again, it's a minor detail. I've seen it in other people's projects, but I did it, accomplished it, and it was great. And speaking of my family, this became a family project as well. I primarily built this fence by myself, but I did have my family become a part of the project. My eldest son, like I said, he helped me with the demolition. We destroyed the fence, and he was taking all the nails off, organizing the wood. We're putting all the loose nails in a bucket, so that way it's easier to throw the wood away and stuff like that. And so he helped me with a couple things where I needed another person to hold something up. Same thing with my wife. When she came home from work, she helped me out. And I actually gave her the task of staining the fence, which she ended up doing this past Sunday. She stained the whole fence. I did help a little bit, but I'll give her full credit that she stained the whole thing, and it looks gorgeous. So I'll be sure to post a couple photos in the Instagram post so you guys can check out before and after the stain and all that stuff. But dude, like it, after finishing building everything, and again, my wife staining everything, basically all of it, it was freaking amazing. Like, I love the way it came out. So now when I look at this finished fence, there's a little piece of everybody in it. I built it. My son helped tear everything down. My wife finished the stain. And my young one's the only one that didn't really help me, because that's another story for another day, because this dude's got 2 left feet. That's, again, a story for another day. And everybody was really happy with how it came out. So it was really cool, and it was just a cool little fun experience to do. So as you guys know, I like to rate a lot of things. So I'm going to give a little bit if I had to rate my first fence project, I'm going to be biased. Obviously, I'm going to say 10 out of 10 because it's freaking amazing, and I did it, and it looks great. Even though there's like things I learned. Like if I want to be like extra realistic, like next time, like if I were to rebuild this fence down the road, I'll give it a 9, because there's, again, from the wood posting and a couple certain wood cuts that I did, I would have loved to have done better. But overall, it's a 10, man, because I did it. I'm happy with it. Is it perfect? No, absolutely not. Again, there's little things I would change if I built another one, but I know where my opportunities are. I know which measurements I would double check. I know what tool I would get differently to help me with the project to make it easier. I know where I could make more cleaner cuts, but I don't look at any of those things as failures. They're lessons for the next project. So if someone had asked me, if a professional contractor built exactly what you built, would you be happy paying for it? And that's difficult, because if I'm paying a professional contractor, I'm probably going to expect it to be better. But at the same time, I think I did a pretty damn good job. So I think the quality's up there. And considering this is my first fence I've ever built, I'm pretty freaking proud about it, I'll tell you right now. So I don't know. Hand in hand. And that's what's crazy. I think about everything I did for the first time: setting posts, working the concrete, framing, building a gate, doing the layout, doing more woodworking, half flap joints, using the wood chisel for those, making adjustments when measurements didn't work perfectly, I got experience with all of it in one project. I already knew how to use drills and saws, but applying those skills to the actual construction project is different. My drills definitely came in clutch. Having both my regular drill and my impact driver was huge. The saw that I have, which is still Nate Driscoll's there that I'm borrowing. I don't even know if you remember. So if you're listening, Nate, I still got your drill or your saw, bro. I got plenty of work, and now naturally, I want more tools because that's how it works. The big one now is a miter saw. I absolutely want a miter saw. If I had that, it would have made certain things on this project a lot easier by a long shot. And there were so many times during this project where I thought, damn, if I had this tool, it'd be easier. And eventually I'll be framing a framing nailer gun because some of the projects I'm thinking about next will actually benefit from having one. So, apparently home improvement is also going to become another excuse for me to buy tools and toys in that arena. And that's fantastic. And, it's going towards the house. So this is a hobby that's expensive, but I know my wife wouldn't mind because if it means better stuff for the home, she's all on board for that. You know what I'm saying? So why did I enjoy this so much? And this brings me back to what I said at the beginning. 12 and a half hours. I spent basically an entire day doing physical labor, and I loved it. I loved planning it. I loved researching it. I loved working outside. I loved working with my hands. I loved problem solving. And most importantly, I love being able to physically see my progress. At the beginning of the day, there was an old crappy fence. Then there's no fence. Then there's post, framing, pickets, a gate. And eventually you're standing there looking at something that didn't exist before. And you made it. There's something extremely satisfying about that. My leadership background probably plays into it too. I'm very used to planning, breaking large things into smaller pieces, problem solving, adjusting when something doesn't go according to plan, staying disciplined enough to finish something. And once I committed to this project, that was it. I wasn't stopping because once you tear down the freaking fence, you didn't really have any other option. I couldn't leave my backyard exposed. So I had to get it done. And there's another part of this that I didn't really think about until afterward. Well, I did think about it before, during, and afterward, technically. But growing up, when it came to things around the house, I always had my dad. And I always did projects. Like he used to always do concrete. He did land like this. He knew everything. And, if anything needed to be done, I could always refer to him, could always ask for his help, because he knew how to do all this stuff. And so this was one of those moments where it kind of hit me hard because, my dad he was around, but then he wasn't around, but then he passed away. And being at the age that I am now, where I'm at, and I got to teach myself, there wasn't nobody standing next to me saying, hey, here's how to set the posts. Here's how to do the concrete. Here's how you build this, how to figure everything out. And I think that's part of why finishing this project gave me such confidence, because now I've proven something to myself. Now that I know how to build, not that I know how to build every freaking thing out there. There's a ton I don't know, but I know that I can learn. I can research something, I can plan it, I can teach myself, and I can figure things out when they don't go exactly according to plan. That's probably the biggest thing I got from building this fence. But there were times where I was like, I really wish my dad was around to kind of help out in this, just to do it like a duo. It's just one of those things. So like, for those of you who's had a parent and they're no longer with us, and they were a big inspiration and they were a big part of your life on certain things growing up, and you're now at the age where you would love to have them around so you guys can do that together. Raise a glass, pour a drink. What do we got to do there? I mean, I understand that. And that's why I'm happy that my kids and some of my family, my family was involved with this project, because some of those experiences when I was young are important. So, yeah. I'm going to take a sip real quick of this drink I got. All right. So now this leads to a potential problem, because now I'm looking around my house going, I could do that. I can build that. I could fix that. The big project I'm already thinking about is a 10 by 10 floating deck in the backyard. Because there is a project that me and Rudy are working on to expand Sigma Duocast. I'm giving you guys a minor teaser of something that's in the works, and it involves a setting, and I want to create a setting in my backyard, hence the 10 by 10 deck video. More to come on that. I'm not going to go into that project we're working on. I want that to be a little bit of a surprise, but this construction project, is one of the things that needs to go into play with it. So now that I've built my fence and everything, I know I can build this deck. And in addition to that, I want to build a room in part of my garage. There are some walls that I want to build inside the house, potentially that can separate my living room and kitchen differently. I want to redo the other side of the fence of the house, matching. There's a little front patio that I want to do. I mean, I got projects, ideas up the yin yang, you name it. And the problem now isn't necessarily confidence, because I know I can do it. It's more time and money, of course, because this stuff isn't free and it takes time. So this month I haven't done, as much podcasting or content creation, because a lot of my free time went toward this project, as well as work and just spending time with the family. And so now I got another hobby fighting for the same free time. So we'll see how that goes. There's still things I'm paying someone to. Now, before anybody hears this and thinks, oh, Rick thinks he's a contractor now or whatever, absolutely freaking not. There are limits. Electrical is something I'd like to learn more about, but that's something where I'm going to be much more cautious. There are situations where I absolutely bringing in a licensed professional rather than learning trial and error. Any large concrete projects? Nope. I've learned my lesson. Mixing bags of concrete in a wheelbarrow for a fence post was enough for me. If we're talking about some gigantic slab, or I'm going to be spent all day dumping bag after bag after bag into a wheelbarrow, hell no. Here's my money. You do it. Small project, maybe, but big concrete project, I'm hiring somebody. I know my limits. I'm done. No. So, yeah. Again, more projects to come. I'm going to be working on a lot of things. It's going to be amazing. I'll share it on the Instagram and stuff like that, but we'll go from there. So, if you've never built anything and you've thought about doing something around your house, but you're intimidated by it, my biggest advice after doing this is research. Yes, YouTube is an incredible resource. Use it. Watch different people. Learn different techniques. Figure out why they are different. Figure out why they're doing what they're doing instead of blindly copying them. Plan your project. Measure. Draw it out. Figure out your materials. Figure out your budget. And take your time. If you need a month to prepare, take a month. If you need 2 months, take 2. There's nothing wrong with building your confidence before starting, but eventually you have to start. Eventually, you've got to stop watching the videos and you got to pull the trigger. And once you do, figure out as you go. Something probably isn't going to be perfect. You're probably going to make a bad cut. Something might be half an inch off. Your first project probably isn't going to look exactly like the project from the guy on the YouTube who's been doing this professionally for 20 years or so. And that's okay. Learn, adapt, get it done. Because now every time I walk outside and see that fence, I can say, I built that. And that's a really cool feeling. So yeah, I built my first fence, but I think the bigger thing I got out of it was realizing that I'm capable of building a hell of a lot more than a fence. Now I just need the time, the money, and apparently a miter saw, because I think I found myself another expensive hobby. So, not to sound cliche, but like the old movie there, if you build it, they will come. I would just remix it to, hey, if you dream it, if you desire it, if you're confident enough, you can build it. And in the end, you'd be greatly satisfied. I'll catch you guys next time. Stay tuned for more content coming up. We got a few projects. I have a few adventures coming up next week and so September is going to be a little action packed for me. So hopefully you guys stick around. There's quite a bit going on: concert, theme park, weddings, Rudy's thing, anniversary of Sigma Duocast. Like, there's just so much going on. So I will catch you guys on the next one. Take care.